Hello, everyone. As you enter the room, the virtual room, thanks for making the time to join us this evening. My name is Michael. I'm the events coordinator and publicist at Annie Bloom's Books. For those of you who aren't familiar with the store, we're located in Portland, Oregon, in the heart of Multnomah Village. We've been around for 43 years now. We're open on weekdays from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and weekends from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Our website is always open. You can shop day and night at annieblooms.com. We offer curbside pickup, in-store pickup, various shipping options. And I'm going to put into the chat right here the link. Oh, someone else is coming into the room here. The link on our website where you can buy both of the books for tonight's reading. There's going to be a Q&A at the end, so feel free to type questions into the chat as they come to you. I'll be happy to read them at the end of the evening. You can also click on the little hand that's in the reactions menu down there at the bottom and ask a question live if you dare. We're admitting a couple more people here. Welcome everyone. Let me tell you about the Luna's book, Exchanging Wisdom. This collection features poems for and about Christopher's son, Angelo Luna, as well as a few pieces Angelo wrote for Christopher. The earliest poem was written when Angelo was 3, and the most recent at age 21. Christopher endeavored to encourage his son to be an autonomous, free-thinking individual. Angelo grew to become that and so much more. Taken as a whole, the poems in this collection track the development of Angelo's personality and the strong bond between father and son. Christopher Luna is a poet, editor, teacher, writing coach, and collage artist. He served as the inaugural poet laureate of Clark County from 2013 to 2017. Luna has an MFA from the Jack Kerouac School of Disembodied Poets and is the co-founder with Tony Lombrazzo Luna of Printed Matter Vancouver, an editing service and small press for Northwest writers. He founded the popular LGBTQ+ friendly, all ages and uncensored Ghost Town Poetry Open Mic in Vancouver, Washington in 2004. Christopher Luna's books include Message from the Vessel in a Dream. We had him for, I think you read from that last time you were here. Let's let Sonia in. Welcome, Sonia. Message from the Vessel in a Dream, Brutal Giants of Moonlight, and The Flame is Ours, the letters of Stan Brakhage and Michael McClure, 1961 to 1978. Angelo Luna is a poet, son, and Lego connoisseur. Oh, cool. Originally from New York with migration to Washington as a young child, he grew up with a fiery bloodline and cold weather. Currently employed as a teller for Wells Fargo, he loves writing, working, and finance, and is interested in what every human has to offer. Their book, I read about their book, Exchanging Wisdom. Let's welcome Angelo and Christopher, and they're going to read first, and then we will hear from Laura LeHew. Angelo and Christopher.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And thank you to all of our friends who are here. And I really would like to say a big thank you to Sean Aveningo Sanders for publishing this book and for the great support that she's shown to us throughout the whole process of bringing this book to publication. I'm super proud of it, and I'm proud to be reading with my son again. We are going to trade off poems, and I'm going to start things off with the first poem in the book. It's called From Snapshots of Kelso. My son is a joy and a wonder, with a laugh all his own and more faces than Lon Chaney. And he is sweet and charming and mischievous and infuriating. Every moment he offers me another opportunity to fuck up, and sometimes I do. On our way to the train station, Angelo hands me a tiny leaf, objects to my unimaginative terminology. That's not a leaf, it's a heart. It's a heart? Well then, I'll keep it and treasure it always.
Then this next one I wrote for Dad's birthday in 2018. That was the first poem that I wrote specifically for him. I find it difficult to write poems that are dedicated to people, but I've never really had trouble with him or my fiance when I met her. This one's called Hearth and Home. How does it feel to be a father? The same way, I imagine, as it does to be a son, but in a different way. The pride of watching another being grow and change throughout the rest of our lives. It seems as if the paradoxical mindfuck of whether or not to have a child solves itself as soon as the child is born, intentional or not. Nobody knows who the best fathers in history were, but it's not a question for the ages, or even one worth asking. Just look at the initial CL and choose the best course of action to take as you move towards being more like that. The sad truth of the matter is that one will die first, but it is impossible to tell which. The happy truth is that both are connected in full, heart and soul, until whatever ends they meet. Knowledge is a living fan base of all the bullshit this world produces, so get rid of all the knowledge and focus on the love. That's the real stuff, the pure stuff. Being this close and similar states of being with infinitely different lives is comparable to piloting a ship that isn't your own. You gain your footing after learning from the best before you, and then chart a new, unique course that someone has taken before, but nobody has seen. Behind the books and the beard stands a mountain of movie trivia and glorious emotion, not to be trifled with, because there is no fighting in that beautiful landscape. Only the hum of the birds, the scratch of a pen on paper, and markings of a life well lived that is not close to over. The world needs more of this, they both say, standing in the grass, pointing out to a majestic sunset.
So although there are 3 poems that were written by Angelo in the book, there are also many poems that include Angelo's words. From the time that he first started acquiring language until much later, I would write down things that he said and make poems out of them. So this is an example of that. And so Angelo is going to read the things that he said so long ago. It's called The Buddha of Independence Day, September 2008. Angelo leads me through the desert. I follow behind him, reading from a hardcover book full of his future poems. As we explore the wasteland, he informs me about the gods, their powers, and their stations.
You know the Buddha, right? The one who comes on the 4th of July? I know a lot about the gods. Ganesh is the 5th god. The first one is the Emperor of Heaven, the one we don't believe in. It's true. If you don't believe it's true, it means you don't believe in Ganesh's powers. Sin is one of the 15 devils. He's enemies with Ganesh, but of course, Ganesh always wins. Did you know that Cat is the god of China? Remember that trick I invented? I named it the Flying Me. I'm the great corrector. I am your alternative. Jedi raccoon. I paused the 7 trials. I think this year, the chaos orbs are aligning. And then this next one is another one I wrote for my dad. This one was for Father's Day a few years ago. It's called Ata, which is father in Latin. Not a beat poet, but loves the beat, certainly. Smooth jazz, rapid rhythms, the claws that sink in when an invader grabs you by the short and curlies and tells you to fucking dance. Not a beat poet, no, but described by Ginsberg decades before his existence nonetheless. First thought, best thought. Uninhibited, uncontrolled, a radioactive substance in writing. Internal radiation therapy, words healing the country from the inside out. While the world burns in Trump's America, Bolsonaro's Brazil, God's earth, he writes his truth and fights fire by sucking the oxygen out of the room. A man whose quantifiable praise for his ancestors quiets crowds when it's spoken out loud. No more fire. There aren't enough of him. Not quite Zen, but Buddhist in soul and practice. Does what's being said need to be said? Why are you saying it? Does it help anyone? They may be mantras to some, but it's better thought of as a scientific method. Dissect every interaction, future and past, and see which parts were necessary. Make yourself the best you can be. I write inhibited, clinical, still coming into my own and learning from my betters. He teaches as a delimiter, not a time bomb. Not a beat poet, definitively, but heavily influenced and proud of it. Surrealist, grounded, visionary works, clutter file cabinets, real and digital. Ginsberg watches him from another life, passing by on the street every chance he gets without knowing it. I like to think that if reincarnation is the way things go, that good old Alan is younger than my father. Maybe he's a student, a fellow teacher, a preteen he makes a collage for. Maybe he's me, though I doubt it. I have other elders to follow. Stoic principles prepare us for loss, and I'll spend my time in study preparing for his most. Regardless of the sum of my works or the product of his, I don't know what real life will do when he's gone. A crack in an invisible wall that only suffers when a truly great person leaves. There's only so many it can take. I often wonder if his will be the last. He betters himself, works with his son to live longer, even though it hurts and sometimes isn't as entertaining as others. He doesn't want to see that wall crack either. He wants to surpass legacies, become one of those elders. No, that's incorrect. Forgive my candidness, but that's what I want. He would be happy leaving a mark on a closed, small circle. I want to see his name in essays 50 years from now. Either way, I'll be proud. He deserves it.
I'll never tire of hearing you read those poems. It's a little hard to read after hearing one of those poems, but I'm going to do my best. Tiny man distracts from contemplation of infinity. How gently has night, secret lover, bound by neither vow nor contract, delivered you into a circle of ghostly deliverance, devoid of daylight's mundanity. Every night as I attempt to fall asleep, a tiny man screams at me from deep inside the fibers of my pillow, admonishing me, ranting nonsense and inscrutable mysticism to distract me from the contemplation of infinity, to prevent me from learning its origins and meaning. Mothers die, poets sicken. No stopping this deterioration. Every chair at this table will eventually empty. No substitution for the living, breathing lover. Every brother, every sister will expire. Every sigh, every laugh, every cry fade. What is left? What remains? How does one continue after the duende has expired?
As to what you said, I also never get tired of reading that particular one, by the way. It's the one I'm most proud of in the book. This next one is School Zone. I wrote it right when my fiance and I were about to move out from his house in May of last year, the first time I set out on my own. A long time ago, in a country not so far away, a few empirical hypocrites declared that children were property of the parents, blacks were property of the whites, and women were property of their husbands. A not so long time ago, in a country much closer, an enlightened being was born with the knowledge that this was shite and people deserved better. He taught his son this, along with knowledge of the human body, a love of obscene horror, and an open mindset. The modern day hypocrites called it dereliction of duty. He called it freedom, and still does. The son grew older, recognizing how hurtful the world can be, experiencing it ever so often and questioning his father about the experience. His father responded with, "People who are mean to others probably don't have a good home life and have been bullied themselves. This is why it's even more important to be nice to them." So he did. More years passed and he found friendship everywhere, love multiple times, and knowledge of how to be better everywhere he looked. Encouragement came for the patriarch at every book read, journey experienced, and thin line walked. At age 16, he received a driver's license and set out on his own for the first time. Something stuck out to him: school zones. People speeding past or abiding by the restrictions both surfaced as the same thought in his mind. They say they slow down because they care about the children, but if that was true, why would we need the fines? Another thought came. His father cared about the children. Compassion is a crime when you live in a world where all you have been taught is how to suffer at the hands of others. This boy's father taught him how to suffer and be kind despite it, doing something many others didn't: be selfless. He would make mistakes, so would the father, but actualization doesn't come from taking easy paths. 18 went by, then 19, then 20. Finally, he sat at the cusp of a new life, one without restrictions or childhood surroundings, and found a peaceful kind of gratitude that he was raised to appreciate the life he was given and will do the same for his children one day. The father will cry when he leaves, and no one but his wife will hear it. However, he'll be in good hands. She follows the same code. And still, despite the shifting tides of years to come, the sun will never be too far away.
Thank you, Angelo. So we were very fortunate to not have lost anyone in our immediate family due to COVID. There are some friends, people that we know, but during that time that we were all staying in, was the first time that I was able to live 24 hours a day with Angelo since he was about 4. His mom and I split up when he was about 4 years old. So during this time that was very frightening and fraught with so much emotion, I had this gift of this time with him. So this last poem that I'm going to read for you, and it's close to the end of the book, because as he said, he moved out soon after that. It happened in July that year. And the only thing you need to know here to understand the poem is that my brother Greg, who it's partly dedicated to, was born on July 4th, 1976. Celebrate Like You're Running Out of Time, a birthday poem for Greg Luna, dedicated also to Angelo Luna, Tony Lumbrezo Luna, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Separated from his love, Angelo studies stoicism, obsesses over stats, keeping an eye on the latest from the WHO and the CDC to tell him where his head is at. Perhaps his studies will lead him to develop the New York City grit his mother denied him when she tore us from our home state so that she could spend her days hiding. All I know is I admire him. I must respect his wishes regarding our time outside the house. He's keeping us all safe, and in return, I enjoy the gift of time with him. It's all we have in the end. Lockdown inevitably changes one's perspective. I now realize that I suffer from self-created, ego-driven paranoia, all of which are illusion and a colossal waste of my limited time on this earth. Or that I spend too many moments worrying about bullshit. Being isolated from family and friends since late 2001 has forced me to reconsider my concept of both freedom and independence. Meanwhile, the world burns and an evil thug has his rich knee on the neck of our democracy. On this day, when independence from monarchy is reduced to a mindless, heartless, nutrition-free cartoon of patriotism, I marvel at you, my brother, an anomaly in our contentious family, a truly peaceful person and the only one able to broker peace when shit goes down. Wish I had an ounce of your ease to soothe my troubled mind. It is as if the spirit of our grandfather, his tranquility, the quiet power of his equanimity had leapt into you so that you might embody the harmony this energy affords. I love you for it. Yesterday, as we watched Hamilton crying and laughing and experiencing a resurgence in our love for the Republic, a hawk appeared suddenly on our back fence and everything froze. You should have seen it. Yellow and red and ferocious, majestic, and completely indifferent to our petty worries, we caught a brief glimpse of true freedom and realized how lucky we are to be alive right now. Thank you. Thanks for having us, and thanks again to Sean for publishing this book.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you to Sean, and thank you to Annie Blooms. This was amazing. Loved every reading that we've done so far.
Yeah,
Good,
if you're in
good.
Portland,
Yeah, thanks. That's
definitely go
great.
to Annie Blooms. I love it.
Thanks for saying that. All right, now up next is our next book, Laura LeHew. Her new collection is About Dear John. This collection of poems investigate and explore the multifacets of love by using diverse points of view to reveal romantic love, loving friendships, and love that is complicated. The namesake poem for which this book was conceived, the final poem, Dear John, is an epistolary poem in multiple stanzas, ultimately on which the theme of this book is derived. What happens between the notes is the living. Former Girl Scout Laura LeHew is enthralled by negative spaces. Her collections include Buyer's Remorse, Poems on Abuse, Let Windows Be Windows, themed around the elegiac, I don't know how to pronounce that word, Becoming, A nonlinear discourse on alcoholism and dementia, Willingly Would I Burn, Math and Science, It's Always Night, It Always Rains, Murder, Noir, and Beauty. It's about fairy tales. In her alternate life, Laura has been active in the high-tech industry for over 35 years. Her company, Deer Run Associates, provides computer forensic investigations and information security consulting services, working with law enforcement and commercial organizations on some of the largest and most high-profile cybercrime cases in recent years. Laura received her MFA from the California College of the Arts. She is on the steering committee for the Lane Literary Guild and facilitates the first and third critique group. Laura held various positions for the Oregon Poetry Association. She co-hosted a reading series, Poetry for the People. Recent residencies include Acacia in the Wood and Playa. Laura owns edits Uttered Chaos, a small press which publishes books of poetry. Everyone welcome Laura LeHew.
Hi, thank you for that. And I wanted to thank first everyone at Annie Bloom's Books for giving me the opportunity to read and getting my books there. And to thank Sean and Robert for organizing the reading and, publishing my book and all. And as always, it's wonderful to read with Christopher and Angelo. I'm going to start with a poem by Amanda Gorman from Call Us What We Carry. It's called Arborescent 2. Like trees, we're always scoping out heat, not with our eyes, but the blur of our bodies, the celestial stitched inside us. Slant upward, for there are ways to sit and let joy find this injury. Even as we let loss wash around our head like a low sound, we grasp at the very best of each other and begin. And I'm going to read this poem is my little sister's favorite poem, and I'm going to read that. It's called Pies, for my sisters Chris, Karen, and Donna. Pumpkin, open-faced single butter crust, smooth custardy filling, eggs, cream, sugar, and spices, cinnamon, ginger, allspice, and clove. First, she said, I ate the whole pie for breakfast, mind you. Then I called for a cab. She leans over and whispers, your father had already set off for work at the phone company, and we only had the one car. You were nearly born in the back seat of a checkered cab. Apple, to sit at the big table, you have to be able to hold a canasta hand firmly in your fingers. To bake a good pie, you have to pick the right apples, tart Granny Smiths and a dash of vanilla. All the rest is just a little of this and a little of that. To stay at the big table, you have to be wicked smart. Butterscotch peach. When Grandma died, Mom got her Betty Crocker cookbook brimmed with family secrets. When Mom died, my sister took the cookbook. One unplanned day, she cleaned out her life, throwing everything she owned into a huge dumpster behind her house. Photos, letters, butterscotch peach pie recipe, all gone. Baking just seems to skip generations. Lemon meringue. If I made the crust and the filling, Mom would whip those egg whites until foamy, stiff sugar peaks formed a perfect moist meringue. Mud. Hollow out a hole, fill from a hose, scoop out a bit, shape into patties. Decorate with tiny, pointy pebbles. Dry them in the sun. Throw them at your sisters before they are done, or after if you are mad at one. This is a brand new poem, Front Towards Enemy. That's a military term. Dear unvaccinated, you who have weighed all the options but opted to say no. My disabled sister's oncologist unable to schedule her biopsy, to you all, Thanks for filling up the hospitals. It's really quite humbling to wait and wait and wait weeks on end to determine what exactly is in her neck, what that rapidly growing necrotic lymph node is composed of, determining the final piece of information that we assuredly won't be able to act on because you don't have the decency, empathy, grace to put the many above your selfish oneness. And I, for one, am worn out with you, done with you. The price is karmic. The blood should be paid in dollars. Your job should fire you, render you unhireable. You should be disqualified from receiving unemployment, making any more claims for rental abatement, SNAP. Like smokers, the cost of your health insurance policies should be dramatically increased. And when you inevitably end up in the ER, you should go to the end of the line with the broken toes or vague rashes, non-emergency emergencies. Hours later, given a minimum of unvaccinated allocations, medications, hospital beds, ventilators. Social services should remove all your children for purposefully endangering their lives, for all the myriad of people you have a hand in murdering, your multitude of sins. But wait, give me a minute. I'll certainly think of something more.
Holy crap.
That's Roy. It's time to revoke
Roy.
Hey, buddy.
It's time to revoke our racism. Phew, assimilation doesn't ask permission, but bludgeons. Blood, bone, crack, concatenates corporeal, derivative of perceived shared ancestry, ethereal, a minuscule elephant, racism, a flanged fence, in scrolls, gunfire, high muzzle, velocity bullets, becomes hopes and prayers. Our hopes and prayers intersect, intertwine, inculcate, witness justice. After all, what is just and good? Discrimination, the keystone to privilege, the linchpin, the anathema of diversity. Migrants in our fields, gardens, houses, nebulous skin tones, religions, orientations, other offenses of color, offset, countered in perish or perish, divergent, quixotic chimeras, rugged lilac, remembrance, like stones with souls, their tongues silent, unbound, vibratos, walled, customs, protection borders, our xenophobic geography, zenith or war zone. It's up to us. So I'm going to change things up a little bit, and I'm going to move to read a couple from my upcoming book, Let Widows Be Widows. This is very cool. This week I've just finished, or I'm just finishing reading the proofs from the galleys. Driving through wetlands. Two sisters glide down the highway. Will it hurt? Not today. Sister, off-key, loud, merge, Petulia Clark's past, present, forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. Two great white egrets ease into river sky, meld into shadow sun. A grim reaper. At the border between the worlds, he could be sighted. Some confused him with Lucifer, some with that other guy, but he was just the messenger doing his 9 to 5. He was a lion, a scorpion, a snake. He was invisible. He wore a veil, a sword, a sickle, an hourglass, a scythe. He was a drummer, a dancer, a beautiful girl. He was ashes. He wished he could ditch his metaphor, maybe swap the scythe for a Glock and an iPhone or some other smartphone for the hourglass, because man, that thing is huge. Just once, he'd like to go about his day in a snug pair of jeans and a ball cap. When the trine between the moon and Mercury tempers the vibe. Sometimes the phone is a duende moon, an oppressive humidity pooling on lilac leaves. Squall's complex incantations to ward off extinction. I offer Kool-Aid colored sunflowers, starlight etched on yesterday's sun-drenched chair. In the car over Bluetooth, I hear how Abigail Poundcake is listless and dying. My friend does not know what to do. In this disaster, she's driven to a vet who isn't there, and no one but me answers the call. I stop the car then, the thrum of dark-eyed juncos in dogwood blossoms. And the rest are all from Dear John. This poem I'm going to read here, just a quick note. It has a blacked out portion of the poem, and when that happens, I'll just do a big pause at that point. Authorized parking only. When she wakes up, luck happens around her. It's 10:40 a.m. Interesting flotsam gets linked. In the lonely, rocky places, he has forgotten something. He knows that for sure. Once we each other before the headache of the flexing seas, most of us would be clipping words from a Sears catalog. You and I had an antecedent problem. Weeding the letterbox. In truth, I have saved every inked letter, every handwritten note, apologies from my mother and my father, notes from lovers, friends, the living and the dead, thank yous, wedding invitations, birth announcements, high school graduation notices, Christmas cards, prayer cards, 180 florist cards, scrawled in atonement, some strangers take on justification, forgotten birthdays, waylaid Valentines, and no, you did not save any of my cards, letters I handpicked, poured my heart onto, signed my name in witness, confession, but I bet you saved Alyssa's, and now, one by one, I pluck cards, read, discard, shred our narrative. I'm not scrolling, there we go. And this is kind of fun. If I were a cowgirl and you were my werewolf, the studs on my bra straps and panties would all be inlaid with silver. 'Cause honey, I know you got a crush on me. As the moon waxes crescent, you stride in from the back 80, mend fences, reinforce the barn, add concertina wire to the coops, wash feathers and blood away. You used to bale hay, but the horses have all shied, and my Rottweiler up and ran away. As the moon waxes gibbous, as you ripen, we began our do-si-do, advance, pass, back to back, return the moon of fiddle burnishing us faster and faster. And baby, I still rope you up every full moon. What occupies my heart depends upon teeth, the nip and bite, the losing control. Wrestling naked on the bearskin rug, my boots tossed recklessly near the flames. Lord knows I love hairy men. Boy, howdy, what if it's the end of the world and you are the cause? This poem is after a poem by Margaret Atwood, Across the Universe. Love is not some gravitational acceleration, a black hole that nothing, not even light, escapes. Fucking is not a galaxy bound by dust and dark matter. You are not my NASA. You are not my terraformation. No one can transform the planets. You're just a Voyager. Give up this space flight, hypothetical, exacting. Allow yourself skepticism. grant mine. The exploration of startle to friction. Allow me the blue-black sky, night's declination of stars. And I'm going to end with Dear John, which is in sections for my good buddy, John Clark. My body freezing in little gasps, in sync with maple, oak, and fir. Storm trees like reliving the fire, the crack and shatter, a sort of PTSD, flames engulfing Oakland, eucalyptus drowning out the air. Dear John, amid the musky cloy of candle wax, I trust you not to start a fire, not to set the building ablaze, or me. Dear John, in my dream, you are a ghost in a graveyard, a pale bloom on a thin spine, a rare red variant opening along a volcanic basalt escarpment. Dearest, truth more complex than thought. It's been 20 years and hey, look, I'm sorry. I fell into flame. I fell into sun. I became a winter storm, a swath of snow and ice. John, ask me how to survive asking you a lightning storm. You took my flame, the uninvited storm, out into the sea, out into the ocean, sea after sea, preparing for scorched weather. Dear one, in a barrage of downed branches, downy magnolia buds dipped in ice, a fire in the stove belly, you tell me to summon breath. You tell me what happens between the notes is the living. Thank you.
Thanks, that was great.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, do we have questions out there? Anyone? Feel free to type them into the chat. You can also, in the reactions menu on the bottom right there, there's a little hand that you can raise hand button you can hit. Also, the poets are welcome to ask questions of each other. Get things rolling if you like.
I have a question for Chris, and a lot of people go in their family. Hi, Chris. Never have the conversation that he and his son's poems have with each other, and it's not that they don't love each other, but the conversation of love never happens. And so, for you and Angelo, I don't want to say how, but when or how or something, a comment on the evolution of that conversation. Because you started writing poems, or you always talk that way since whenever, or COVID sat on your heads and said you really should talk because there's nothing else to do.
Well, it was pretty much from the beginning. My parents both did love me and support me, but you know, I had not always the easiest relationship with my father. And when I found that I was going to be a father myself, I was just determined to not do the things that I thought were wrong in terms of how my father had parented me, or the things that I had seen other fathers do. And I think you can do a lot through sort of process of elimination. So that was my goal. And the book is kind of reflects that, is kind of about that, was to not be a fascist, you know, because many parents are fascists because we can be, because we're bigger and older and all of that kind of stuff. Angelo, do you want to say anything about that? Like answer her question at all, or what's your perspective on it?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously didn't live through your personal experience. I lived through quite the opposite because of you. But yeah, to answer your question, it's always been that way with my dad. I mean, he made the decision that he was going to treat me with respect and love, and it made my life very easy, and it strengthened our relationship over the years. And he's the most respectable person that I know of in the world, and someone who I think anyone would be proud to call a dad. And from the perspective of the child of that relationship, it is the right way to do things, because I never felt like I couldn't talk to him about something or couldn't bring something up with him, or just that either one of us were always there for each other no matter what was happening.
Well, your poems show that. And I'll cry later. It's very, very wonderful to have the poems as to share with us that can happen.
Yeah, thank you. I think that the poems we're both really proud of, and we both want to keep making more. I don't write as much as I used to, just because of work and school and life, but especially the one that I wrote about in Ata, it's one of my favorites that I have ever written, and inspired by our whole relationship and how I feel about him.
We have a question from Aaron Lund in the chat. For Chris and Angelo, when did you decide to create this book of poems from the collections you've gathered over the years? And what inspired creating a book out of those poetic exchanges?
There's, well, I've been writing poems for Angelo and about Angelo since we found out that he was, coming, since we got pregnant, right? So, and then when he was young and acquiring language, as I said earlier, I'd write down the things that he said and then sometimes turn those into prose poems. So they'd be like 2 to 4 pages per month of just the wild and wonderful things that he said. And poetry's been a part of his life since the beginning, because in my life, there's no separation between like what I do and who I am. And so when we started the reading series, he was there, and it was partly a childcare situation, but it was also to get him in the room with poetry. I really believe if you can get kids into the room where poetry and art is happening, that's all you need to do. It's not about what we say to them about it or making speeches about it or anything. Those kids that grew up at Ghost Town just got to experience what poetry can be in your life. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, on that point, like, I definitely could have at any point, like, and that was what he exactly meant by it is, like, at any point I could have chosen that I didn't like reading poetry or didn't like coming to the series, and would have been totally okay with it. And sometimes I wasn't feeling up to it or anything, but I decided on my own, because he didn't push me for it, that his work is great. I read and heard a lot of his work throughout the years, and I realized it was a really powerful art form. I also really like to sing, and I feel like his influence on my artistic mindset was the thing that really drove me to write in the first place. Like, both of my parents are big readers, so I definitely feel like I would have had a good grasp of the English language and the arts, regardless of whether he had pushed me or not. But me going into the arts, I can attribute to him because of those things.
Nice. Emmett, do you have a question?
Oh, I wanted to speak to Laura LeHew. I just thought,
Great.
Laura, you're either wicked, shrewd, or clever, or you sleep in a hyperbaric chamber or something, because your poetry is just otherworldly, very clever. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Just wanted you to know that. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I second that emotion. That was a killer set, Laura, and I know that it's harder to get the energy up sometimes for these Zoom readings, because you can do a great job and then there's like this deadly silence after each poem, so I just thought you did great, Laura. It was a pleasure to hear.
Naomi. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just agree with Christopher that the Zoom silence is like, am I bombing? Am I doing okay? It's hard.
Yeah, you did not bomb, that's for sure. Naomi says, Laura, it would be fun to hear more about John.
Oh, yeah. John and I have been buddies, oh my gosh, from the 80s, the 90s. We met in tech, my company Deer Run, and he's a computer consultant. And I learned that he liked science fiction. So I thought, I like science fiction, and I went to a lot of science fiction conventions. So I brought him because he wanted to meet Glenn Cook, who's his favorite writer, his favorite science fiction writer. And Glenn's a good friend of mine, grew up in Missouri. And so I took him back to Missouri and introduced him to science fiction fandom. And he was blown away. And now this guy is, if you've read the dedication in my book, he was in Vietnam, and he was a pretty scary guy. And yeah, he was afraid at the convention. So it was very fun. And then John and I, we just started letter writing. He moved to Virginia for a while, and he's moved all across the country, and kind of gave up on text. So now we just write letters back and forth when the whim gets us. So John.
Nice. Reading Eugenia saying sci-fi and Star Trek conventions, 1980s San Jose, many memories.
True.
Other comments or questions from folks? What you think?
Good job, Laura. Good job.
Oh, thanks. And Leslie, you look like you're me.
Yeah, I look like you. Okay.
No,
This is not Laura.
No, it's Leslie. And Leslie's cat was called Abigail Poundcake.
Yeah, I was glad to see Abby in that poem.
Yeah, I loved that name.
It was a good one. She was a good cat.
She was a good cat.
I want to give a shout out and a thank you to Emmett Weefall for being here, my friend, and he will also be our guest at Ghost Town Poetry Open Mic on Thursday night this week. And I know that these are strange times, but we are doing an in-person reading, but we are also having people Zoom in. So if you don't feel safe, or if you don't live in Vancouver, Washington, please join us anyway. We're still working out some of the kinks with the the technology aspect of it, but we've been doing it since September, Zooming people in and having people there in the gallery, which is called Art at the Cave. So I'll put a link into the chat in a moment, so in case you want to find out about what we'll be doing on Thursday with Emmett Weefall. If you haven't heard him read or seen him read, you definitely need to have that experience.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Oh, there is the link that Christopher posted in there, so you can go check that out. And going once, going twice. Well, maybe we've come to a natural end for the evening then. Sonia says she especially liked Christopher's last poem read. Yeah, they were all really good.
Thank you, Sonia. Thanks, Michael. Really was great.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks to all the readers and everyone who came.
Yeah, fantastic. And also for Angelo, just to say, have you seen the SNL Angelo and Todd? Do the original one with the 007 guy. It's fantastic. It's really
I'll look it up.
so hilarious. Yes, SNL, Angelo and Todd.
All right.
Great reading, guys, everybody.
All right.
All right, thanks everyone. Yeah, this is being recorded. It'll be up on our YouTube site later tonight probably. So if you know of people who weren't able to come and enjoy this in person, virtually in person as it happened, then let them know that they can go check it out there on our YouTube channel. All right, thanks everyone. Have a really good night.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. It was really fun. Great to have so many friends. Great to hear Laura. And support Annie Bloom. Support your local bookstore. Even if it's not local for you, support it. Buy some books from them. It's great.
Absolutely. Better than Amazon.
Of course. Goodbye.
Bye.